Welcome to Vacuum Wars, and to our review of the brand new flagship robot vacuum from iRobot, the Roomba J7 Plus. There are lots of new features and big changes with the J7 from the previous Roombas, and I took a lot of time to test it in various ways to see how everything works and how it compares to other Roombas as well as to other premium robot vacuums. So links in the description, and let's get started. Starting off with the pros, the biggest news with the J7 in my opinion is that it's the first Roomba to have a camera-based obstacle avoidance system, which iRobot calls precision vision navigation. Up until recently, robot vacuums couldn't detect and avoid objects that were too low for its IR sensors and too light for its bump sensors to recognize, things like cords and socks and the dreaded pet waste. The solution was to put some kind of sensor that could detect these kinds of objects on the front of the robot. In the J7's case, that is a camera, which iRobot has programmed to detect all kinds of objects, and it can learn to avoid even more objects either through updates or its own learning methods. I tested this in a variety of ways with a variety of objects like toys and cords of all sizes, all of which it recognized and avoided. I also tested this with a lot of pet waste, and on that point, iRobot seems to have spent a lot of time building models of pet waste for the robot to learn its various shapes and sizes, so much so that they have a new program that seems to more or less guarantee the J7 will avoid pet waste. And it certainly did perfectly with avoiding it in my test, which is a really big deal because not only would it make a huge mess, it effectively ruins the robot. And before this new promise from iRobot, your only consolation would be that you could have a viral video on your hands if you recorded it. The Roomba J7 Plus is a smart robot vacuum, meaning that it creates a map of your house and it navigates around very systematically, room by room, in more or less straight lines. I was really interested to see how well it did with navigation and coverage, since the J7 uses the same camera that it uses for obstacle avoidance for its navigation, and it's mounted on the front instead of on the top as it has been in the past. So it seemed to me like it would be an entirely new navigation algorithm, but I could tell no difference. Its coverage was as good or better than the previous best Roombas like the i7 Plus or the S9 Plus, which is to say really, really good. Related to navigation, I also really liked the keep out zones feature where you draw barriers on the app to keep the robot from going places in your house that you don't want it to go. This is one of my favorite features that I use all the time, and again, it was just as good as the previous top-of-the-line Roombas in the tests. In terms of its cleaning ability, let's first consider its hardware. It has the new style dual brush design, which I think first came out on the 900 series with the rubberized brushes, with one side brush, 6 drop sensors, and a floor tracker. The two brushes work well together on both hard floors and carpet. It does well with debris from fine to extra large. The side brush doesn't scatter debris as much with these new versions, which I like. On carpets, it's as good as you would want a robot vacuum to be. I've said many times you really can't beat a Roomba when it comes to carpet cleaning, mostly because of its patented 2-brush roll design. For example, on the carpet deep clean test, where I embed sand into medium pile carpet and weigh the bin before and after a 5-minute run, it scored a 91, which is way, way above average, and second only to the Roomba S9 Plus, which is impressive in itself, since the J7 got such a high score with a fraction of the energy output, as we will see later. But I also think the J7 was better than average for hard floors. It had a really nice clean pickup of everything from fine to extra large debris, even heavy debris on hard floors, which is a difficult test. All in all, it seems to be one of the most well-rounded Roombas I've tested. Let's talk about this new iRobot Clean Base. One of my favorite features in the robot vacuum world is these new self-empty bins, where a motor in the base sucks the debris out of the robot's dustbin into an included bag. In iRobot's case, they say these bags don't need changing for months on end, depending on your usage. This new design is more compact, with the idea being that it can be put in more places than the older style, like under tables. It has some cosmetic touches as well, and it has a holder for an additional bag. Other than that, it seems to use the same method of bin emptying that the previous Clean Base did. I've had trouble with other manufacturers' auto-empty bins getting clogged with pet hair if I don't run the robot vacuum at least twice a week. So I've started waiting a week or more to vacuum my house in anticipation of testing new auto-empty bin systems, just to do a kind of torture test. This time I waited a full 2 weeks to vacuum and was sure it would clog with pet hair, but the J7 emptied the bin perfectly with no clogs, which is really rare, and it may be one of the best auto-empty bin designs I've seen. I liked that it was super quiet, around 61 decibels on its 1 power setting, which is very close to the quietest robot vacuum I've ever tested. I also liked that it was really short, so it could get under all the furniture I wanted it to. One thing that iRobot has clearly invested a lot in are the digital experiences with the iRobot app. Some of these features I've seen before, and some of these are new to me and unique to premium Roombas like the J7. I'll put a few of these things on the screen, but there is a lot packed into the iRobot Genius 3.0 software system, though I didn't have a chance to test it all out. Moving on to the negative stuff. The first thing was the power. With the exception of the Roomba S9, I've found almost all Roombas to score very low on these types of tests, and the J7 was no exception. Very low suction and airflow numbers relative to other robot vacuums I've tested. But the thing is, Roombas are also the only robot vacuums that don't really need a lot of power, since they have that aforementioned patented 2-brush roll design, which as we've seen gives them above average scores with their cleaning ability. Really, the only test in which power was an issue was the crevice pickup test, where it was below average, as have been all the Roombas I've tested, with the exception of the S9. But vacuuming debris in deep crevices really isn't something most people will encounter, so moving on. With the longer human hair tests, it was below average, with a lot of the hair getting caught in the axles and some kind of bunched up to the side that was never picked up. Not a huge deal, but the main thing to remember is to regularly clean the brush rollers as a part of their scheduled maintenance. Another sort of negative thing is that the battery life hasn't changed much since the i7. iRobot's customer service says it gets 75 minutes on its 1 power setting, which is decent. It did map my house with a lot of time to spare, so it's not a huge deal, but 75 minutes is below average for a premium robot, especially robots that don't have a lot of power, so I feel like a bigger battery would have been nice. It did not avoid the cloth in the obstacle avoidance test. I should have tested it a few more times to see if it was an anomaly or not, and we'll try to do so in future videos. I wanted to make a quick edit at this point. I just heard that the Roomba J7 is currently programmed to recognize just cords and pet waste. This will soon be followed by more objects added to its library like shoes and socks with future updates. They say they're going to continue to add more objects as time goes on, so this explains why it didn't avoid the cloth in these tests. The price is also a negative, but really just because it's a premium price. It is trending in the right direction though. The J7 Plus is quite a bit cheaper than the S9 Plus was when it was released, and I like the J7 Plus a lot more than I like the S9 Plus. To sum it all up, I think there's no question that the J7 Plus is the best Roomba from iRobot to date. It did all the things it needed to do really well, like clean hard floors and carpet, but the premium features like the Clean Base and the obstacle avoidance sensors take it to the next level in terms of value. And these features are very useful when combined with things like the keep out zones and all the app features in Genius 3.0. Links in the description, and be sure to subscribe to Vacuum Wars before you leave. Thanks for watching.